name's Toby Jacoby, and I'm 31. I live here in Toledo, or I live in Maumee, actually. Born and raised in Toledo. And I currently lead a group study that is used to help men and help men to break pornography addiction and really just find just wholeness, find peace and find support of other men who want the same thing. I'll give some more background on myself when it comes to pornography. I've been exposed at a young age. I was exposed around 11, and I didn't stop seeing it until my early 20s. And it's something just for me to give you hope and encouragement that if you want to be free from it, you want it gone out of your life to not be a problem, it's possible. It takes effort and it takes determination, but it's possible. I'm married now, going on 4 years, and you know, has the way that it has shaped my mind. Our minds know that they're pliable and that things can change, and that really how we think can be changed. It can happen, and it's just something that if you're willing to believe in it and invest in it, it can happen for you. It can happen. So that's a little bit more about me. Yeah.
So, can you tell me a little bit about like what you've learned as you started leading this? Is it like considered like a support group, like a pornography um, breaking free kind of support group? Is that what I would?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It would essentially be like a support group, or you could call it a Bible study if you want to. It's really a great series. It's actually an animated series I've been following, and this has been guys who they've put their heads together. I mean, you've got psychologists, you've got scientists, you've got pastors, you've got um, NCAA wrestling champions, you've got um, Vietnam War veterans. You've got a lot of different heads in this and how they've shared their experiences and their understanding to essentially a science and a scripture study to help show what to help you understand that it's not about working harder to get free, it's about working smarter. And so they put that together. It's really awesome.
So, what's the name of the study that you guys used?
It's called the Conquer series.
Oh,
It is back when we got the DVD series. You probably can still find the DVD series, but they've changed their setup now to where it's in completely digital access, and you can log in. It has a cost, like a I think a monthly or an annual cost depending on what you want to pay, and they have expanded their content from years ago. Years ago, I've been doing this for years, and it's still it's crazy when you discover things you've held back, or or just new layers of things that get brought to the surface, to for you to handle and to what's the word, just to face it, really. But it's a great thing. It's because it's all is it sounds like, growing up. That's really what it is, but it's such a good thing. And what pornography tends to do is restrict you from that. It's like it promises you it's going to help you, and it takes everything from you. It takes what you had from you. Yeah.
what have you learned as you've kind of grown and learned then over the years helping to lead the study? What have you learned about the effects of pornography as far as what it does to your brain? And because I've heard some different things on how it kind of changes the way your brain works and even like affecting the way your emotions and all of that, as far as causing like long term problems. Am I saying
Yeah.
that right? Or,
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you watching pornography, it immediately starts to change your brain. And that is because sex is a design by the creator, and it's meant to be embraced in that way. So when you, of course, when that is when you engage in that the way it was designed with a wife or husband, then your brain is wired in the right way. It releases hormones that are for bonding. It releases dopamine for just feel goods. It's all types of pleasure and bonding with that person, with that partner, right? And so when you watch pornography, at least me as a guy, I can say I've like watching it in the beginning as when I was younger, it was strange. It was just really weird, but it and even then there's it's almost like your conscience is telling you like this is strange. I don't think we should mess with this. And if you know, as you continue on with it, it's like that voice just kind of goes away. But with that, when you view it, the same bonding hormones and pleasure hormones are being released when you're watching this. The problem is it's just you and what you're viewing. So when you mentally have that release, you're meant to bond with the one you're with. And so when you're watching videos, what ends up happening is you start bonding with an image. You start bonding with body parts or what you're seeing, or or a particular, whether it's hair color or like certain details of whatever, if what you're attracted to, you start to really lock your brain locks in on those things. So and really experiencing something, it'd be like, you're playing air hockey and you're playing yourself. You have to hit it and run to the other side and hit it. And it's like it's not meant to be experienced that way. So when you're experiencing something that's meant for two people becoming one person, then it's just it again, it changes your brain. It changes what you think of sex itself, of how you see the opposite gender. It really starts to flip everything upside down. Pornography will promise you your wildest fantasies, and it sets you up for life that's just not, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't happen like that. So you know you're anticipating that the real thing is going to be what you're seeing in the videos. You're going to have this crazy experience, or the person is going to be really passionate for you, and or it's going to be spontaneous, whatever, all these things that it promises for us as men, right? And then you get into the real situation, and it's another real person with real feelings, and it's a real experience, and it's just like, this is not what I expected. This is most likely what I believe it becomes a letdown, because guys have expected the person is going to be like what they've seen in the videos, and it's just like it's staged, it's fake. They shoot it like a movie, like it seems like it's not all, you know what I mean? So it really sets guys up for just huge false expectations. What tends to be the issue that we men deal with is that pornography is not even actually the main problem. Like we may think we're doing well, things are going okay, we got a good job or we got a good relationship, and then these urges are happening, or we're secretly going to see this, and it's like part of you is like, I don't want this around. I have a good thing going and my life's well. It's not, what I've learned is that pornography is not the main problem. It's not the main issue, that there is a side issue involved, and this is just a coping mechanism. It's just a way that you medicate some type of something you're dealing with that you might not even know is there, or might not even know how to identify. And for me, it definitely was that. When that thing shows up, or disappointments, or just many unanswered things that can cause you to feel anxious or depressed or sad or whatever, and you don't know how to deal with those things, you'll probably, like me, learn to escape. And I escaped a lot of my problems through viewing pornography and really binging video games. I used to play a lot of video games just because I didn't, the answers weren't there in my family of why do I feel like this? How do we deal with this? It was more or less just you get through it. And it was like, well, I'm gonna feel good while I'm going through this. And so that's what a lot of a lot of the viewing that I know for at least for men who view it as a problem and they want to get rid of it, that's usually what the reason why they have the urges is it's just a way that they've medicated something they're dealing with. It's easy to trick somebody when they don't have an understanding or know what's going on kind of a thing in young ages is that's that time of development to where you know this is brought into your view and it's just it just again it for me for my early 20s I was not it was not a good time for me. I just was selfishly treating women in just not in a good way. And it was stemming from how much I had viewed previously. And like I used to watch it so much that when I was in high school, I convinced myself like I don't need a relationship. Like I'm good. This helps me take care of my issue, right? And that is the biggest lie, the biggest deceit of it. Pornography will promise you your wildest fantasies, and that promises you can be the master of your own pleasure. You can have pleasure right whenever you want to. And so you get older, if you're trying to do things by the right way, you get married, you might not have, sex might not be something as frequently as you thought it would be from what you've been watching, or, the temptation can still be there of, well, I can just go here because I can decide when I want. I can get my fix when I need it by coming here. And it's just again, it's hard when you're shown at a young age, it's almost like it seems like it's embedded to where you get older and it's just like I'm just, it's not hurting anybody. I'm just helping myself find pleasure and not realizing you've agreed to put your life to pair your life up with somebody else and live for the benefit of that other person, but you've been steeped in that so at a young age. So yes, young age is very typical and very common and average, I would say. And even with that, I would say it was I was actually introduced by a friend. It was a friend who introduced me, and he was my only good friend at the time, and so it made it harder to say no. But it
Mhm.
also was around in the household that I was living in, so it wasn't something that was taught. This is not what we do. It was almost like the silent, like it's here, like it's kind of like it's like I don't know, you find out Santa, like you try to peek and see if Santa Claus is really bringing the gifts. It's like nobody said you can't do it. And it's like the curiosity, it was always there to view it because it was around, you know.
Yeah, that's always my concern with the technology that young ones get in their hands, especially, nowadays with the internet and all of it at their fingertips. I always say it's like a loaded weapon because,
Mhm.
again, normal, typical adolescent development, development is curiosity and pushing the limits. And, I mean, trying to figure out who you are, so it makes sense that a young person would think, I want to see what this is all about. I mean, they're curious, they don't know. And I've heard it said that some of those images that they saw in their youth is still almost like embedded that image in their
Yep.
mind as an
Yep.
adult, which
Yep.
amazes me to think, it can do that much long-term damage.
Yes. Yes. And I will say that hope is always alive. Like I've had over 10 years of viewing it and I'm now married, and marriage has not been the solution, but it has truly helped me put the spotlight on the problem to then find the solution. The hope in it is that um like I said before, if you want something different, you can have it despite, that first image. Yes, you may never forget, but having my wife and having this, she's a gift. And sex is a gift, and having it in its proper time and its proper place, it truly, having me being somebody who watched it all the time, and I watched a lot of it, and it never was enough. It always, you always had to start watching weirder stuff to get a fix from it. And now having it organically and having my wife as a partner, there's nothing, it's how it's supposed to be. There's nothing better than it. So it's something that, have I, now that I have seen it, I know it helps. I choose to help it propel me towards her whenever something could come my way, whether it be bad thoughts or just times of struggle and those kind of things. I choose to direct my thoughts when these types of things happen. And it's not something, I will say, it's not something that, you know, it's not an easy thing to develop, but it can be developed. Nothing's easy. Guys know this. Guys are big sports guys, you know, and ladies are too, but guys love to go. Everybody loves to go to the gym, and they love to go and lift weights and do all this and be sore and hurting. And it's just like, you know, you're getting stronger. And it's the same when it comes to brain, though. People tend to shy away and say, oh, this, you know, I don't want to think this hard, or I don't want to, you know, commit to this and those kind of things. And it's still the same. No pain, no gain, right? So it's the same thing mentally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you notice, because I've also heard that it's becoming more of a problem with women as well. Do you notice that conversation developing, or is there a women's group for support as well?
Absolutely. This is in development. So funny story that in the host of the series listed that he started his group, and he was running his group, and then I think it had to do with the wives of the men that were in his group, that his wife, the host, was being approached because the women were trying to figure out their way through this too. And so they ended up starting a women's group, but this was in the series. I have not been able to fully explore and find something that is like as laid out as this, but I know it's a developing thing. And even when I posted some videos just promoting the group before it started, I had a lady that I know comment and was like, ladies struggle with this too. And I'm like, I believe that. I don't know how to help you yet though. So we're working on that. And I would want, by all means, I want to be able to have something back, because my wife has been exposed as well. So, you know, it's just because, you know, it tends to be more male focused, the target of pornography. But yes, women do struggle as well, and there should definitely be support for them just as well. So uh keep hope for me in develop, because
I
that's
will. Is having a support group like this, or a place where people can kind of get the help they need, is this fairly unique, or is it more common? Because I guess I hadn't heard about it until I got connected with you. So I'm just curious, like, how is it something kind of that is still kind of breaking the stigma and getting out there, that people can get help and talk about it instead of keeping it hidden?
I would say yes. I know one other group that is actually using this film series in Toledo and are really helping men. Um, I know from the series, it's talked about very often that um, it's something that is a problem, but it's almost like they're just calling people to come to address the problem. So I don't know exactly how prevalent they are, but they are out there. I actually know of one other group that is on the same subject. It's actually not on the film series. They're doing their own independent kind of a thing. But yes, it is. I think it's becoming more, and it almost when you, it's funny, like me being exposed as a young kid. Even I hang out with teenagers, and I've had some of them tell me in school, kids at the back of their classrooms turn it on in the computers. And I'm just like, wow, like it was so different in my school because it was just something you just did in your own privacy versus that being like a class thing is just a whole nother thing. But anyway, I bring all that up just to say that from the time you get exposed as young to, this, the awareness now, it's kind of like the Sound of Freedom movie, like how it's been happening and now the awareness is being brought to the forefront. I it's just things go a certain way, but hope never dies. And with that, I'm just saying that, like I've been saying, if your mind can be changed, I actually want to even say this, but I keep saying as your mind can be changed because numbers are important for understanding. So this is according to the series that I watch. They say that it typically takes 90 days to find a stable sobriety. So you staying away from it for about 90 days. But it actually takes 2 to 5 years to go through a whole, like a mind renewal. And I would honestly contend to say that it could even be longer or shorter, depending on just how much you give of yourself, how much you're willing to, essentially how deep you're willing to dig. It can be shorter, it can be longer. Yeah.
Wow, that's surprising to me that it really can be that long to kind of completely get away from that. So that to me says that you definitely need to surround yourself with those people that can support you because that's a long time to keep saying no to something that you felt drawn to. So what are some of those like ways that within your group that they kind of support one another to help themselves be successful? And even maybe some of the triggers that and like boundaries maybe that they have to put up to be able to help their success.
So I want to say just how important it is to be in a group. You're going to want to be in a group who are like-minded. Some people, I've I've told people that I stopped watching pornography, and they asked me, essentially, they asked, was something wrong with me, to put it lightly. And so you're going to want to surround yourself by people who are on the same page as you. They want this out of their life. They recognize it as a problem. You want to be in that group. Why? Because you cannot do it by yourself. Because if you could get free from yourself, it'd be done. This wouldn't even the problem of it being of pornography being an issue would be stated. This is an issue, and then people there'd be ways like here's how you get free from it by yourself. It already would be a thing, and people would be straight, right? But it doesn't work like that. So it's another thing by design that we're members of one each other of one another. We need each other. That's just how it works. So first and foremost, if you want to be free from this, you have to get in a group. No questions asked. And if you're going to get in a group, you have to start facing the music. You're going to have to start looking in the mirror. You're going to have to start being honest with yourself. You're going to have to start being honest with your group members, because what tends to be most cases of men who are exposed to pornography is it becomes a way for them to medicate some type of pain they're dealing with or disappointments they're dealing with. And most likely exposing this fact that they're viewing this can be a shameful thing. So it starts off as a bad choice, and then it becomes like a hook, and then it becomes a cycle, and then it just continues to build so much that essentially you begin to live in a sense of denial. It's like I was saying earlier about the conscience, like your conscience telling you, hey, this is not okay. Eventually, your conscience is not going to keep saying you should stop doing this. Eventually, it's going to be like, I don't feel bad about this anymore. And that's actually what causes we can come back to that question you were talking about, is what propels that. But anyway, so you're going to have to get in a group. You're going to have to be honest with yourself and with your men. And that is the foundational thing that is going to help you get free and help you start renewing your mind and changing the direction of how you think. After that, the series gives you, excuse me, the series gives a number of personal individual disciplines that each man is to undertake. So, of course, you take your porn blockers. If you're seeing it on your phone or you're seeing it on your laptop, you have to block that. If most likely, I've had guys tell me that they're doing really well, and then they get alone, and then it's like the thoughts just like magnify like ripples in a pond, and they just are like consumed with thoughts, and then they give in. And um, journaling is not a girl thing. Journaling is for everybody. Journaling is a great thing that really just helps you to have a what's the word I'm looking for? Just a release essentially, but
Like a focus, kind of focus your mind. Are you thinking that?
definitely a focus. I feel like it's another word than release, but just kind of process is it that's what I'm looking for. Journaling helps you to process one thing, as I know this as being a man, and they help you understand this in the series, is that men and women are wired differently. So if you are with a woman and you're involved in this and you're telling her, hey, I'm struggling, that doesn't go well with her because her brain is different. Her brain is like, well, why is this happening? Am I falling short? And then as a guy, the guys get it when it's like, no, it's a me thing. But the gals don't understand. They think it's why we go well together, because we think differently. But they think in a different way. So another reason why journaling is important, because you can't share everything with everyone in the sense of like a lady partner in that sense. But you got to have your guys to be able to share with, but you also have to have a journal so you can be able to reflect on your own thoughts, your mind, your patterns, what's going on here. Journaling is an outlet for that. Also, they have they have this essentially this composed test that helps you. It's like 45 questions, maybe. It's kind of like a survey to help you take it and just answer honestly. And it assesses you essentially as like clinically, like you would be clinically, you'd be an addict, or clinically you wouldn't be, just because again, we're good at lying to ourselves. And this will really show you where you're at. Like, no, you really gotta check yourself here. Um, and the last thing, of course, is, oh, two things actually, is new habits. You're going to want to have new habits, because you can't stop one habit and just be done. You're just going to go back to that same habit. This is probably common stuff, but it just needs to be applied here like anywhere else. So if this is a habit of yours, you wake up in the middle, or you wake up in the middle of the night, or before you go to sleep, or in the morning, you go to a certain spot and on your phone or whatever, like that has to change. Your wake up routine needs to switch to something different, or you're just not going to go anywhere. It's just the facts. And lastly, being in that group, like I said, you're going to have to get comfortable with um, being honest with yourself, being honest with your group members. And that, honestly, what that means is you got to call and check in. You got to see what you guys are going through weekly, sometimes really daily, truthfully. If you're struggling daily, what makes you think anybody else is doing, oh, their week must be going really well, that's why they're not reaching out to me? No, if you're struggling, you reach out because you need help, and you never know what your vulnerability is going to open up for another man to say, man, I've been losing my mind and just haven't wanted to tell anybody. You never know. But those key ingredients are going to make a great stew, or a great whatever batch of something that you want to call it, of helping you reach sobriety.
I love that, because you're right. It's so similar to when someone's struggling with a drug addiction. They need that same type of support to help people, have other people help them through it. And who better to go to than somebody else who's struggling with the same thing? So
Yeah.
I love that. Have you noticed, since you've gotten away from pornography, like you mentioned the way you treat women differently, I've
Mhm.
heard it said as well that, as you're viewing these images and these videos, it like dehumanizes people. Suddenly they're not this, wife of somebody or daughter of somebody. They're this pleasure, whatever character, so you're not thinking of them in the terms of they're somebody's daughter, there's somebody, that's in that film that you're viewing. So have you noticed that kind of changing as well from when you were involved in it to now being away from it, and how you look at women differently and treat women differently?
Yes, absolutely. So, I'm not saying marriage is the solution, but when you're committed to someone else, it does help in your life. It helps to expose things. So I say that I want to still give hope to my single guys here, because that's, if they're watching this stuff, they, there's you, there's hope for you in being with somebody. So being with my wife, and just being honest here, it doesn't, like, women don't just become now ugly, or they're not, and then no diss to ladies at all, but a lot of fitness outfits and things like that are kind of, they're pretty revealing and those kind of things. So it doesn't, things don't necessarily get easier on a guy, but what has to happen, whether you're married or not, is you have to just become intentional about what you're thinking. And, you know, truth be told, for me, I've had crazy experiences in my life, and I know that my thought life is accountable to God above. And so that helps me to be intentional on what is filtering, what is passing through the conveyor belt of my mind, right? So for those, if that's not something, if your thoughts, if you're not that accountable, again, it's still you're wanting to be sober from this. Just keep committed to that. But yes, like you were saying, watching it does, it's very sad and terrible. It creates this, you begin to look at the opposite sex as like a vending machine, and just like, I can just put in a certain amount and I can press a number and I'll get what I want. And that's just not reality. That's just not how it goes. And when you become intentional with your thoughts, you have to rethink. When you, okay, you might have a first look at somebody and you're like, oh shoot, wow. And then the thought after that then now becomes what you can control. What did you just see? Or the second look, if you're going to look back again, why are you going to look back? You can control those things. So being married helps me to be that much more accountable to what I'm thinking. But even if I'm not, or if I want to be married one day, or if I want to be right by God above, then starting to monitor what I'm thinking is very important. And then again, having your men's group to be able to process this out is very vital, because we need each other, and being able to journal your battles. So, um, yes, yes.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, so talking then about, you mentioned Sound of Freedom. When I watched that myself, again, I've had people in conversations I've had with people of, how does somebody get to the point of wanting to have sex with a child? So we've kind of had that discussion. I've heard it before said of how watching pornography, you escalate, and you mentioned that a little bit earlier, how you kind of escalate what it does for you. So it doesn't do much for you, so you escalate, and now it gets a little bit more graphic, or a little bit more I don't know if grotesque is the right word, I guess. But is there any insights on that, on how that kind of does escalate? And, I don't know, any insights on that? Because that's the conversation I've had with people, is looking at what is the root of if we're going to try to fix the problem, we got to go back to the root. So what is the root of, somebody desiring a young person, or whatever that case may be?
Absolutely. It all starts with, again, what you're feeding your mind, and what you're feeding your mind is it's like seed. You're planting the seeds of something in your mind, again, that if you what you're putting in your mind is what you are feeding your brain, and what is developing your thoughts and propelling your thoughts forward. Now, exposure can be, there's a lot of factors in this. So if you're exposed at a young age, or if you're exposed at a young age to young pornography, which is a thing, there's homosexual pornography, there's child pornography, there's all types now. And so your first exposure, could become detrimental. And again, like I had said previous, that sex is a bonding act, and your brain is now bonding. Your brain will now associate sex with this. If I see kids having sex, then this is what or a man having sex with a kid, or a woman, whatever that would be, my brain could lock onto that thing. And if that's the first thing you see, that's going to be the hardest thing to get out of your mind. So there's, our, like we've been saying in here, our brains can be changed and renewed. So there's hope for, if that were to happen to you. My exposure was something that was hard to say no to, and it wasn't even about the porn itself. Again, it was about it was about me potentially losing the one friend that I had at the time, is the only reason why I said yes to it. So it was kind of a con that I even got into it. Like, to answer your question, what happens is, even when you're exposed to this, whether it be the first time or whatever, we all have consciences that kick in and say, I don't know about that. Something's not right here. And whether we know it or not, or know how to listen to it or not, when we ignore that's the one thing that makes you, somebody, I don't, this is a hypothetical thing. You go to steal something. It could be something small. You go to take a cookie out of the cookie jar, and you're not supposed to have any cookies. And it's like, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should go put it back. When that's removed, oh gosh, it's just like, it's a black hole after that. And so this also can play a role with genetics. And when I say that, because the brain is so crazy of how complex our brains are. Like I said, in my household, pornography was secretly out in the open. That's a good way to put it. It was secretly out in the open, right? So these things were being planted or whatever, and they still never really sat right in my conscience. It was still coming to me weird. But then as I grew older and saw myself getting into these situations that I really didn't want to be in, but it was almost, it's like the peer pressure always seems like it tends to be that way. Here, take a hit of this. Here, drink some of this. And it's like, I don't know, but I want to be accepted. Yeah, or whatever. And, you know, so all of these factors play a process in it, but they all can be reversed. That's what I want to make clear. If you've been exposed or you've made bad choices, it can be changed. It takes you becoming accountable to God. It takes you becoming accountable to you. And that's where the start of it is. And yes.
Great. I love that message of hope you keep reinstating. So thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
So how would someone, if they are watching this, how would they get started to get help? And keeping in mind that people may be watching this across the United States. So, I know you're in the Toledo area, but where can they kind of get started? Do you have like online resources that you have available that are helpful? Are there online groups that people can connect if they're not nearby? Like, do you offer an online group?
That is a great question. And this online group is now in development. But the same series that I use to help my group and my guys is available to anyone. And that can be found at soulrefiner.com. soulrefiner.com. I also had found an app. I have an iPhone, so I don't know if it translates both ways, but it was called the Freedom Fight. It's very similar to the video series that I study. So those are two direct resources right away. And then as for me, that's in development. Might have an online group here in the future.
That's great to hear. I know that's one of the beauties, I feel like the good and the bad of all the technology. And one of the good things is the online option where people could join from all around the United States or even out of the country if they wanted to and be able to get the help that they needed. So I
That's
love
right.
that.
That's right. Technology, I can't say for everything, but it's not that it's bad. It's just that, like most things, the things inside of us that are crooked, sometimes the technology becomes a tool to help us become crooked quicker, you
Yeah,
know.
that's a
But
good way
but
of putting it.
likewise, it also helps us to um, be a great tool to do great works if used in that way. A lot of things are just how we use them or what our intentions are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful insights. I appreciate your vulnerability and your time that you gave us to be able to, I know, help many who will be viewing this. So, anything else that comes to mind as far as, things that maybe nuggets that you've had from the groups that you've done that maybe some of the guys have shared, kind of those aha moments, anything like that, maybe that come to mind?
Sure thing. The last thing of just knowing that this is a journey, so that means you're going to fail. But if you're determined to win and beat this thing, then you will. It will happen. And again, it's determining by, if you're determined, you'll be willing to put your pride aside and say, I need help, and you'll get it. So it's a process. You're gonna fail, but it's all about your grit. It's all about you getting back up. And also, this is what we're talking about is a struggle with sexuality. This is a part of our DNA. You're male or female. I'm sorry for who. I'm not trying to get into that, but that's what you're born as male or female. And this is this is pornography. I believe pornography is an attack on our gender, on our DNA, and it really dehumanizes us. It brings us down to a lower level of like animals, like we're just mating, and that's just not what we were created to be, and how we're not created to enjoy it this way. There's statistics about this, about a marriage and a family do the best in terms of a stable home. Um, Again, it all begins in the thoughts. Nobody, I don't know who. It could probably be contested, but usually things happen when they've been thought of first. Things don't just randomly come about in life like that. It's a thought and then it's acted upon. And when you're watching that, you're just feeding this unnatural desire to bring you to go find somebody else or to bring somebody else in or whatever crazy stuff. So absolutely it is by no means do I promote how men and women think differently as a excuse for a man to watch pornography and say, oh, I'm not cheating on you, I'm just finding some pleasure in this or whatever.
Right.
No, it's just that a man understands a man's temptations, whereas that's the only thing I would say promotes. So when I say that in the series too, like as a man would be struggling, they tell you if you have not mentioned this to your significant other, do not, because of just how a woman's brain is designed. What they say is that women thrive on security. So if I come to my woman and say, we've got a problem, I'm looking at other women, she's going to be like, do I leave? Is it me? Like all types of different things are going to be coming in her head. And meanwhile, she's not necessarily seeing where he's saying, I got a problem and I want to be honest and tell you about it, but it's a sexual problem. So then it's really hard for that to be communicated from a man and for a woman to understand it. So in the series, they say not to keep it from your significant other, just to hold on to it and have your men's group to share it with. So when you become sober, you can come to her and say, I had a problem with this, but I'm 6 months sober, and go from there. Because I'm actually talking to a marriage right now, and where the husband keeps coming to the wife and saying, I relapsed again. I went and watched it again. And she got up and left. She went back to her parents' house and was like, I don't know if I want to be with you anymore. And he was doing the right thing by becoming clean, but he wasn't doing, I don't want to say that he wasn't doing enough, but he wasn't doing enough of the right thing. He was saying, I have a problem here, but he wasn't doing anything about the problem other than saying, I got a problem here. And so that's the difference of like men needing other men to understand, but also to keep them accountable as a man. Like, look, bro, you better take care of your stuff and be a man and face this and not, you know, grow up.
Well, and that makes sense because I didn't take it when you were talking about men and women thinking differently as an excuse. So I didn't think it came across that way. But I have heard that said. My husband and I used to do marriage mentoring, and we followed a curriculum for young couples that were entering into marriage. And that was part of it, is understanding how we do think differently. So just, how we solve problems differently, and we come at life situations differently. And I mean, that it's helpful for me to understand that, because before then, I guess I really never thought about that we do think differently in how we go through life. And it just makes sense. If you can understand that, you can work better together. All right. That was such great insight. I appreciate your time and all that you've given us. And I just thank you. I thank you for all that you're doing and all the people that you are able to help. So keep fighting the good fight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on here. This is an encouragement to me because I've been leading the series for some years now, and it's just awesome having an opportunity like this to be able to share this, and it really helps me to become sharper too. Even though I'm leading the series, even though I'm watching it, and I'll say it just like anybody else. We can become good at tricking ourselves, or I've given enough of myself, or and I started noticing that guys would be touched, but they wouldn't be changed,
Mm.
and even I was starting to deal with that. So I this in a sense is encouragement to me that I'm pressing forward in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that I'm trying to do more, it's just that I'm going into more depth with this.
Wow.
So
That's
thank you
awesome.
for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.